current, all assets in the world currently equal about $900 trillion. Underneath those assets is about $600 trillion of debt. If you include all of the liabilities and unfunded liabilities, but 600 trillion. And so if that debt went insolvent, all of those assets are worthless, right? Because everything would collapse. So people are measuring their assets within a system that debt is already insolvent, and they're pretending that debt is solvent. That debt requires more and more manipulation of money forever, exponentially more manipulation of money, so that the assets don't collapse and everything within that system doesn't collapse. So we're at the almost end of days. It could go on a bunch longer, but that system is getting more and more centralized, more and more controlled, and because it has to. We'll go into that afterwards. But every single asset, so instead of thinking 900 trillion of assets, think my house within that, this building within that. Well, if that debt went insolvent, this place would be worth nothing, like nothing, right? So there would be complete chaos, and a small percentage of a Bitcoin in time, that would be enough to live forever. And it's just, all we're talking about is the timing of when that happens, rather than does that happen. So
I think, and I appreciate our conversation so much, Jeff, because I think you take me out of that perspective. I mean, it's very difficult. You're the one that actually told me this. It's very difficult to imagine that system within the existing system.
it's impossible.
Yeah.
It isn't in the system. In other words, you have to use first principles and then ask what will happen because of that, what will happen because of that, what will happen because of that. Because when I think about this, I think about all of our mental lattice, all of our books, every single other thing we've ever written is within the system. We've always lived in a control system. It's never been a global free market. We've always co-opted money. When people say gold is actually the store of value, over and over and over again, if it stays decentralized and secure. That's my caveat to Bitcoin, repricing the entire system. What would not make it stay decentralized and secure? One of the things is exactly what you talk about. If in over 5,000 years in history, we've always centralized, and we've always believed that inflation is natural and deflation is unnatural, then it's not Bitcoin, it's us that centralizes.
Is it human nature?
It's human nature. It's greed, fear, and fear. In fact, a lot of control mechanisms are created by creating fear in us. That then we give our control, we give our time away through fear because somebody else will protect us, right? And so that's an age-old trick. It's how false flags work. It's how so to be able to create that fear. If I knew everything about Bitcoin and I couldn't stop it every other way, I did social attacks, I did climate, it's bad for the climate, I did all of these things. If I couldn't stop it, what I would do is enrich within that system. It would co-opt them into that system. And I think many, many Bitcoiners are going to do that along the way, and they're going to sell, they'll do okay, everything else, and they won't be Bitcoiners. The question is how many more join and understand what Bitcoin really is for humanity.
Yeah.
How many people keep going? Because most of those people that do that don't run nodes. They're deferring their judgment to somebody else. And the people that run nodes, and more so in time, it'll be economic nodes. And how many transactions, what do those look like on the network? Those are the gatekeepers to Bitcoin. So now let's just keep playing this over. And this is why I talk about this all the time, because the two systems are incompatible. If you're measuring from this fiat system, the price go up, you are part of the centralization. I can't say that any other way. It is a first principle. You are part of centralization, right?
Yeah.
As you really come to understand, people do what they need to do for their family, for their money, and they will say, I have enough, I can escape. But there is no escape from a centralizing system. So what you asked there, that clash, it's inevitable. And that clash has been going on over and over and over since Bitcoin was discovered or invented. There's been a centralized system, a control system, cannot allow Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Can't, because they're two different systems. You almost have to say it 1,000 times to yourself. The natural state of the free market is deflation.
Yeah.
Which means you've never lived in one.
No.
Never.
No.
You don't have,
Unless you've been denominating your net worth in Bitcoin, you have been experiencing that deflation.
you're living on one.
Yes.
You're living in the first global free market that has ever existed. And as more and more people in this network, as more and more people build to it and move their time to it, we are both the map and the territory. It starts to expand, and you start to see a totally different experience than most people over here measuring their control system see. And you look at them and you think, for me too, for a long time, keep saying there is no they, because what gives rise to that is us. It's not them, it's us believing that is normal. If you just start with the natural state of the free market is deflation, you have to ask, where does inflation come from? And I'm not talking about inflation from zero. I'm talking from inflation from -5 or -10 or whatever the productivity rate is in the world. Where does inflation come from? It only comes from one thing: manipulation of money.
Yeah.
Only. And I don't think many people have many Bitcoiners have gone down that path. Very few people have really gone to the bottom of what does that mean? What does it mean for me if I'm measuring in that system? Because I'm contributing to that system.
Yep.
And then the more I do in that system, and the more I think it's somebody else, turn the mirror around, the more it's me.
Yeah.
Right.
The more focus and attention you Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are going to fight this. So what would you expect to happen from this? If you've always lived in a system of theft, always, and that system had to centralize more and more because it's based on stealing that productivity that should flow to all humans and centralizing it up, then you have to ask, who would win from such a system? And if you're giving more power to that system and complaining about the people who are winning from that system, maybe it's not them, it's you.
The power comes
Power comes from us.
The power comes from people choosing to participate in that said system with their voice, their time, and their money. If we all, as I hate to use the word collective, but as a whole, decide to opt out and to participate in the alternative system, it takes power away from that system.
They're incompatible together.
Okay.
One has to, so all the centralization. So when people say, I'm not going to do this because I'm worried about what the government will do later, they're full of incredible relationships, everything. Their life is getting better and better and better. And I think this is also what creates some inside those Bitcoiners pushing harder and harder on their friends to try to get them to understand. And sometimes pushing their friends away because it's so incompatible. The ideas are so incompatible because they want to help their friends and feel what they feel. And then as they feel it, they just move to a lot of times a different group of friends. And through that system and how chaotic that's going to be like if you just asked, what would it look like? Many of these people will try to cheat the system because they don't have any recognition. So if you think of it, FTX, if you think of all of these things, if you think of Ethereum, if Vitalik just bought Bitcoin instead of, he was an early Bitcoiner.
Yeah.
He would own more Bitcoin than if he had so all of the people who've tried to cheat Bitcoin would have been better if they just held Bitcoin. If you look at Coinbase.
Oh my, Coinbase versus MicroStrategy.
Quality is from printing money, which is theft from the free market. How could you fix inequality with more theft? I would venture to say anybody listening to your podcast that's not a Bitcoiner yet, I ask this question to many people and I'd say, pick your problem you care about most in the world, right? Whatever that is. And it's taking all your time and attention. And tell me how that problem is solved by arbitrarily creating more monetary units, just more pieces of paper. Can that problem be solved? And when people are honest with themselves, I realize that problem gets worse. And then they start to see all of their imagined problems in the world are getting worse. If they go back 10 years or 20 years, and all these things they care about are getting worse and worse and worse. And so, okay, why are they getting worse? Because we're printing more money. So we're going to print more money and that's going to get better, right? So because you're arbitrarily favoring the assets because the assets are holding value better.
Yeah.
And then those assets are taxed higher and higher and higher. So government gets bigger, more and more policy, more and more manipulating the
Latest thing now, I think it's meme coins, right? Look at this
Trump coin or
Trump
something.
coin, exactly, right? Look at this Trump coin. Like, I could buy more Trump coin than I can Bitcoin. So, are people still late? Are people still late to Bitcoin? Are people late to Bitcoin?
We started this podcast with it's going to have infinity in value. As it does, a lot of those Bitcoiners trading in Bitcoin will trade their Bitcoin for services that provide them value, and it'll expand around the world. And more and more and more and more. We are so early on this path. Is there a perception we're late? There's a perception we're late. It's just perception. And what that's saying is we're so early on this path that this is going to be, it's going to just be chaotic. It's just going to be really chaotic. And most people, and many people won't know how early. And maybe they'll be the same when I thought I was late, right? In 2017, because my technology team told me in 2011, and I dismissed it. When I first was in too, I thought I was late. And when you look around at the world and you realize, wait, there's not 8 billion people talking about this yet, right? They're talking about what this is. We are so crazy. I, at that time, even though I was buying a lot of it, I certainly didn't understand Bitcoin like I understand it now. I assumed it had about a 5% probability of failure. I understood nodes, I understood how it worked, but some of the questions that people ask today, why it'll centralize, why it'll fail, I went through all of the same things. I would say I perhaps had when I look at some of the arguments against it, at least some of the nonsense arguments against it, I almost think that's cute. Because I was once there too.
Yeah.
And I spent so much time attacking this to say, my general principle is this. If 5,000 years, we've never had a decentralized, secure protocol bounded by energy, and was this different enough to withstand the worst in us, the greed, the fear, the worst in us? Was this different? Could it resolve that conflict? And at first, that's why I said 5% probability of failure, is I didn't think so.